Have you ever had that really jarring moment where you walk into the kitchen with a clear purpose?
Oh, to grab a glass of water or something.
Yeah, exactly. But by the time you cross the threshold, you just completely freeze. You're standing there looking at the refrigerator, having absolutely no idea why you're in that room.
Right. It's the classic doorway effect.
It is. Or, how about this one? You're right in the middle of reading a genuinely interesting sentence in a book or watching a movie you actually enjoy, and you suddenly realize your hand has reflexively reached out,
Grab your phone.
grabbed your phone, unlocked the screen, all without your conscious permission. If you're nodding your head right now, or, if you've done that today, you are definitely not alone.
No, not at all. It's a nearly universal experience at this point in modern life. And I think what makes it so frustrating for people is that it usually comes paired with this overwhelming underlying sensation that we are just constantly running out of time. We feel like there just aren't enough hours in the day to get our actual work done, let alone have a moment to sit and enjoy ourselves without feeling guilty about it.
Which brings us directly to the mission for today's deep dive. Today, we are going to figure out exactly why we constantly feel like we're running out of time when the reality of what is actually happening inside our brains is far more interesting.
It really is.
We're pulling from some absolutely fascinating source material today. Excerpts from a text called The Architecture of Attention, Reclaiming Your Inner Space. And what's unique about this text is that it's framed as this beautifully thought-provoking dialogue between a teacher and a student.
Yeah, it's a great format.
And the student in this text basically represents you, me, pretty much all of us, feeling incredibly busy, constantly working, but inexplicably empty and unfulfilled at the end of the day. I want to welcome our expert to help us navigate this. Where do we even begin with a text like this?
Thanks for having me. To really set the stage for our analysis today, we have to look at the core premise the teacher presents to the student right out of the gate. Because the central thesis of this source is a complete paradigm shift.
Okay.
It argues that we do not actually lack time. We have the exact same hours as we always did. What we are running out of is our attention space.
Attention space.
Exactly. The text makes a very sharp distinction that I think challenges a lot of modern workplace culture. It says working does not equal being present. And being busy definitely does not equal being effective.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the student's dilemma in the text is just painfully relatable.
Uh-huh.
Early on, the student tells the teacher that they are just doing task after task after task from the moment they wake up to the moment they hit the pillow.
That nothing ever actually feels finished.
Right. Nothing feels finished. They feel they're completely starved for time.
Yeah.
But the teacher stops them and points out a crucial difference. The teacher asks, are you actually experiencing life, or are you just passing through it?
It's a heavy question. Because the student assumes that just because they are doing things, checking boxes on a to-do list, they're living. But the teacher is pointing out that if your attention isn't there, you're essentially just a ghost haunting your own schedule.
Haunting your own schedule. That's a great way to put it.
You're physically present, but cognitively absent.
But wait, isn't that just a requirement of the modern world? I mean, if you're listening to this right now on your commute, you probably feel like you have to be doing 3 things at once just to keep your head above water. How does the text reconcile that feeling of necessity?
It reconciles it by looking at biological reality, which is the ultimate trump card here. Human life operates on strict biological limits, not just on what feels logical to our modern, productivity-obsessed sensibilities.
We think we could just push through it.
Right. It might feel logical to think we can process everything happening around us if we just try hard enough or drink enough coffee. But biology says otherwise. The text explains that every single second, the human brain is hit with a massive, overwhelming waterfall of sensory information.
Just a constant flood.
Yeah, sights, sounds, temperature, the feeling of your clothes against your skin. But your conscious mind, it can only process a very, very thin slice of that waterfall.
The text uses an analogy for this that I think really clarifies things. It introduces this concept of attention space, and the teacher compares it to the RAM of a computer. Now, if you aren't super technical, think of your brain like a massive, sprawling public library.
Okay, I like this.
That library is your hard drive. It holds all your long-term memories, everything you know how to do. But your RAM, your attention space, is just the tiny wooden reading desk sitting in the middle of that massive library.
That is the perfect way to visualize it. You can only fit maybe 2 or 3 books on that reading desk at any given time. It is incredibly small, much smaller than you'd naturally believe. Your biological RAM is not designed to hold the whole world. It's only designed to hold the very few specific pieces of information that you are actively processing right now in this exact second.
Right. So if you bring 50 books from the library and try to slam them all onto that tiny reading desk, they're just going to fall off the edges onto the floor.
And your brain is literally forced to ignore almost everything going on around you just to keep that tiny desk functioning for the task at hand. You simply cannot place the entirety of your day, your looming deadlines, your unread emails, and the conversation you're currently having onto a table that small.
Which brings us to what might be the biggest lie we all tell ourselves, and honestly, something that job descriptions actively demand from us: multitasking.
Oh, absolutely.
The text highlights a genuinely shocking point. Multitasking is a total myth. I want to emphasize that for everyone listening. The teacher explains to the student that when you try to read a complex work document and text a friend back at the exact same time, your brain isn't magically dividing its understanding in half.
No, it's not expanding the desk.
It is not expanding the desk. It is just frantically switching channels back and forth between the two tasks, tricking you into thinking you are doing both of them well.
Yes, and that frantic channel switching comes with a severe biological cost. We think we are hacking the system, but the text breaks down the specific price you pay every single time you switch your attention. It's a heavy tax.
What kind of task are we talking about?
Well, first, your error rate immediately increases. You are far more likely to make a mistake in that document or send a typo in that text. Second, the total completion time for both tasks stretches out far longer than if you had just done them sequentially. You aren't saving time, you are burning it.
I feel like I constantly fall into this trap. But if it's so bad for us and it makes us slower and more prone to mistakes, why do we constantly do it? Why do we switch tabs, look at our phones, check a notification the second it pings?
What's fascinating here is that the text explains this not as a character flaw, but as an evolutionary glitch.
A glitch.
Exactly. Our brains actually love switching tabs. We are biologically addicted to the new. Every single time we check a notification or open a new email or swipe to a new short video, our brain gets a tiny, rewarding hit of dopamine.
A little chemical thrill.
Right. We aren't switching tasks because we are being more efficient workers. We are doing it because we are seeking that chemical stimulation. It is quite literally an addiction to novelty.
The source makes a really brilliant comparison between our past and our present to explain this glitch. Think about our ancient ancestors. They survived by constantly scanning the bushes for danger.
Yes.
That instinct to constantly check your periphery for something new, a rustling leaf, a snapped twig that was a survival mechanism. If you didn't look, you might get eaten. But today, we aren't scanning the bushes for wild animals. Our modern predators have evolved.
They absolutely have. And according to the text, today's predators are screens, short videos, push notifications, and ultimately our own brain's craving for a scene change.
Wow.
We are using ancient survival hardware to navigate a digital world that was explicitly designed by engineers to exploit it. The environment changed, but the biological hardware didn't. We were still frantically scanning the bushes, but the bushes are now in our pockets, constantly buzzing.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the text introduces this concept called attention residue. This is something I think every single listener is going to recognize instantly.
Oh, for sure.
The teacher warns the student that when you switch from one task to another, let's say you go from writing an intense, stressful email for work, and then you immediately walk into the living room to play a game with your kids, your mind doesn't make a clean break.
It doesn't.
A piece of your attention actually stays stuck on the previous task. There is a residue left behind. So when you sit down with your kids or when you move on to your next meeting, you are never fully there. You are constantly doing your current task with only a fraction of yourself.
It creates this invisible drag on your cognition. If we think about the listener's daily life, this explains so much of that underlying modern angst. Have you ever had that constant gnawing feeling of lacking something, or feeling deeply unfulfilled at the end of a very busy day where you supposedly got a lot done?
All the time.
The text argues that this isn't because you lack time. It is because you lack wholeness in what you do. You are moving through your entire day in fractions. A fraction of you is answering emails. A fraction of you is eating lunch. A fraction of you is talking to your partner. You never bring your whole self to any single moment because your attention is smeared across a dozen different unresolved tasks.
Smeared is such a great word for it. It just feels messy. And it goes back to what the teacher said at the beginning. It's the literal definition of passing through life instead of actually experiencing it. You're just a smeared fraction of a person all day long.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it leads to the text's most sobering point, the actual death of memory.
The death of memory.
Yes, this is where the stakes get incredibly high. The teacher explains that the deep, bone-weary fatigue we feel at the end of the day isn't physical tiredness from hard manual labor, it is fatigue from attention overload. Your RAM has been thrashing all day. And the tragic consequence of this overload is that if you do not pay attention, your experiences are never actually encoded into memories.
Wait, really? So you're saying if I'm not fully paying attention because of residue, my brain just throws the memory out?
Yes, you can live a whole day, do 100 different things, interact with a dozen people, and remember absolutely nothing deeply.
Yeah.
Because you simply didn't have the available attention space, the room on that tiny desk to record the experience and file it away into the hard drive. If the attention isn't there, the memory cannot form.
Wow. That is terrifying, honestly. You live a day, but because your RAM is so full of fragmented tasks and attention residue, the brain just doesn't save the file. It just gets wiped. You lose those days of your life.
Yeah.
So what does this all mean? How do we actually fix this? What I appreciate about the source material is that the teacher doesn't tell the student to just quit their job, throw their phone in the ocean, and go live on a mountain.
Right, it's not anti-technology.
No, they don't offer some impossible utopian solution that ignores the reality of modern work. Instead, the teacher offers 5 highly practical lessons for cleaning up your attention space. Let's walk through these together because they are incredibly actionable.
They are very practical. Where does the teacher start?
The first one is all about recognizing your RAM as an asset. Lesson 1 is stop asking how much can I do and start asking what deserves my RAM.
I love that framing.
The text makes it very clear. Whoever captures your attention space fundamentally controls your life. Think about the attention economy. Every app, every social media platform, every targeted ad is designed to steal real estate on your tiny reading desk. If you treat your attention like cheap, unlimited currency, they will gladly take all of it from you. You have to start treating that tiny table of attention space as your most valuable, highly guarded asset.
That shifting perspective is crucial because you stop viewing distraction as just an annoyance and start viewing it as a theft of your life. And that leads right into lesson 2, which is learning to differentiate between 2 very specific types of tasks, habitual tasks and complex tasks.
Okay, break that down for us.
The text notes that habitual tasks, things you do completely on autopilot, can safely be paired with something light. You can go for a walk and listen to an audio program. You can fold laundry while talking on the phone, because folding laundry doesn't take up the whole desk.
But complex tasks are a totally different story.
Exactly. Complex tasks require your full RAM. Writing a proposal, having a difficult conversation with a loved one, learning a new skill. For a complex task, trying to do more than one thing simultaneously literally breaks the quality of the work. You cannot combine a complex task with anything else without destroying the integrity of both. You have to clear the desk completely.
Which brings us to lesson 3. The teacher calls this the intention gatekeeper. And the advice here is that right before you start a task, you should explicitly state your intention out loud, or at least clearly in your head. You literally say to yourself, for the next 25 minutes, my only focus is reading this contract.
It sounds so simple.
It does, but the text is realistic. It notes that intention alone doesn't do the work for you. It's not a magic spell that prevents distraction. But what it does do is act as a gatekeeper for your attention.
How so? How does just stating the intention act as a gatekeeper?
Because it draws a clear, conscious boundary around your RAM for that block of time. If you don't state an intention and your brain wanders over to check a sports score, you might not even realize you drifted off for 10 minutes. But if you made a specific contract with yourself for those 25 minutes, it is much easier to catch yourself the second your brain tries to sneak off. You notice the urge to check your phone immediately rather than after you've already lost 20-minute scroll.
It creates a conscious contract with yourself. You are making the invisible process of attention visible. And to help enforce that contract, the teacher provides lesson 4. Environmental design. You cannot rely on willpower alone. If you try to fight your biological urges with pure willpower, The biology will almost always win eventually.
We get tired.
You will get tired. The text explicitly states a fascinating rule here that I think trips a lot of people up. A phone simply sitting out on your desk equals a portion of your attention being imprisoned.
Wait, really? Even if it's face down, even if it's on silent, I feel like as long as it's not buzzing, it shouldn't matter.
Even if it's face down and silent, the text argues that your brain knows what that object is. It knows it is a portal to dopamine, to new emails, to social validation. Just having it in your visual field means your brain is using a sliver of your RAM to actively suppress the urge to grab it.
That is wild.
It is an imprisoned piece of your attention. Therefore, turning off distractions, putting the phone in another room, closing the 20 extra browser windows on your computer, none of this is a sign of weakness. You aren't admitting defeat. It is a sign of wisdom. You are designing an environment where doing the right thing is the default, rather than a constant, exhausting struggle against your own instincts.
Think about your own desk right now. If your phone is sitting next to your keyboard, you are taxing your RAM for no reason. I definitely need to be better about that. All right, rounding out the solutions is Lesson 5, the mental tab check. The teacher instructs the student to just stop randomly during the day and ask themselves, how many tabs are open in your head right now?
Like a web browser.
Exactly like a web browser. If you have 40 tabs open, the browser slows down, the cooling fan kicks into overdrive, and eventually you get the spinning wheel of death. Your brain does the exact same thing when you are holding on to too many uncompleted thoughts, anxieties, or minor to-dos. The source's solution is brilliant in its simplicity. Write them down.
Right. Don't try to solve them all right then and there.
Exactly. Just write them down on a physical piece of paper with a specific note to save for later. Writing it down physically frees up your RAM because your brain no longer has to use biological energy to remember that you need to buy milk or email your accountant. The paper is holding it, so your brain doesn't have to.
It is a profound psychological release. This practice of the mental tab check is essentially practical mindfulness. You are simply recognizing the mess in your head without judging yourself for it. You aren't berating yourself for being distracted. You are acknowledging the open tabs, writing them down to secure them, and that act gives you the power to choose where to direct your attention again. You return to the present moment with a clean desk.
It is such a relief to realize that the goal isn't to never get distracted, because our biology, as we discussed, guarantees that we will always be drawn to new things. The goal is just to have a system to gently close the tabs and clear the RAM when we notice it happening.
As we look at all these lessons, it really forces us to redefine what we think of as efficiency. We have been sold a toxic modern myth that efficiency means juggling a never-ending list of concurrent tasks, looking like a blur of motion.
Right, the hustle culture.
Exactly. But the core takeaway from the teacher's wisdom in this text is completely different. True efficiency is finishing exactly what you intended to do, maintaining a clear and present mind while doing it, and ultimately living a deep, memorable life. The profound realization here is that you do not need to live faster. You need to live clearer.
I love that. You don't need to live faster, you need to live clearer. That completely changes the metric for a good day.
I want to share the ultimate closing thought from the text because it summarizes this entire deep dive perfectly. The teacher looks at the student and says, attention space reflects your life. When it is shredded, your life is shredded. When it is protected, your life becomes intact again.
That's powerful. It really is. If you, the listener, are hearing this right now, I highly encourage you to share this deep dive with anyone you know who is currently living their life busy to the absolute point of exhaustion. We all know someone who is running on fumes, completely overwhelmed by the sheer volume of inputs, constantly dropping the ball despite working 10-hour days. They probably don't need another hack to cram more tasks into their calendar. They need to understand how to protect their attention space.
This raises an important question to leave you with as you go about the rest of your day. We have established that your attention space is truly like a finite piece of valuable real estate. It is small, it is precious, and it is under constant attack. So, what architectural walls or fences will you need to build tomorrow to actively protect your inner space from the increasingly sophisticated predators of the modern attention economy?
That is the perfect thought to end on. What are your walls going to look like tomorrow? Are you going to move the phone out of the room? Are you going to set an intention gatekeeper? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take a breath, close out those unnecessary mental tabs, and remember to guard your RAM today.